Chapter 1. A Galaxy Awakened. The bustling spaceport of Orion Prime was a riot of sights, sounds, and alien species congregating from across the galaxy. Transports and starships of every make and model touched down and took off in an endless stream, kicking up swirls of dust and engine exhaust in their wake. Tari Velos, a young Dornian scout in the Explorer Corps, wove her way through the crowded docking bays, shouldering her well-worn kit bag. She was headed to the docking ring, where the scout ship Tempest awaited her return from a routine surveying mission. Tari's crested crest feathers quivered in excitement at the prospect of shipping out again soon on a new adventure. As she passed a dingy cantina, a boisterous crowd of raucous beings spilled out, jostling Tari aside. A pair of heavy-set, cruel traders glared menacingly before lumbering off. Tari shot them a scowl. The rowdy spacers sometimes forgot their strength compared to the slender avian Dornians. She keyed her comlink as she neared the Tempest. "Captain Trvyn, I've arrived at the dock." "Cutting it a bit close again, Scout," the gruff Garoxian captain's voice crackled over the link. "We're just loading the last supply containers. Get yourself aboard and get squared away. We've got a new mission briefing that's going to set the galaxy on its ear." Intrigued, Tari doubled her pace towards the battered scout ship. She keyed the outer hatch and bounded up the ramp into the vessel's main corridor, nodding to the smattering of officers and crewmates she passed. She stowed her gear in the crew cabin before making her way to the bridge. The bridge of the Tempest was a dimly lit hub of streaming star charts, sensor displays, and the main view screen. Captain Trvyn stood at the center helm pit, flanked by Lieutenant Korath and the hulking form of Chief Grav, the Vrunk security officer. "Good timing, Scout," rumbled the captain. "We've received new orders from Scout Command. Highest priority." Tari arched a feathered brow ridge as the view screen flickered to life. The stoic visage of Admiral Draco of Scout Command appeared. "Ladies and being of the Explorer course, 3 days ago we received a coded signal pulse from deep in the uncharted Barlock sector. The contents of this signal seemed to indicate the discovery of—" Draco paused for effect. "A surviving outpost or installation of the ancient Vykran civilization." A hush fell over the bridge. The Vykran were a mysterious race that purportedly predated most of the galaxy's worlds, reaching a technological and scientific apex long before ceding to Oblivion. Their crumbled ruins and artifacts held immense archaeological value. "As the nearest scout vessel, the Tempest will set out immediately to investigate and document any findings," Draco continued. "We have only the barest idea of where the signal originated. You'll be charting your course into the unknown, but with the potential for a discovery unlike any in our age. Good luck and fair travels. Scout Command, out." The Admiral's image winked out, leaving the bridge crew exchanging glances of astonishment and no small amount of trepidation. "Well, my intrepid crew," Trvyn growled. The lupine features of his vulpine face curled in a grin. "Time to make our mark in the star charts, eh? Mr. Grav, prepare for immediate departure and plot an expeditionary course for the Barlock sector. Lieutenant, begin scanning all channels and data banks for any mention of Vykran ruins or installations in that region." "This is the kind of first contact situation we train for," the captain continued, turning to eye each of them. "But even with all our preparation, the road ahead is cloaked in mystery. Steady yourselves, but embrace the significance of our mission. Today we sail into the ashes of cosmic history itself." And with that, the decks of the Tempest began humming with the thrum of engines spooling up. A new heading was locked into the Navy computer, sending the intrepid scout ship and her crew hurtling into the inky vastness of the Barlock sector, and the tantalizing promise of an incredible discovery awaiting them. Chapter 2. Into the Void. The Tempest's engines burned at maximum safe acceleration as the sleek scout ship hurtled through the iridescent swirls of a cosmic dust nebula. On the bridge, the crew worked in silence, their attention rapt on sensor displays and astrometric charts. "We're coming up on the projected coordinates from Scout Command's data," Lieutenant Korath announced, her grey-furred hand deftly working the scanner controls. "Long-range scans have detected several celestial bodies, consistent with an unexplored star system." Captain Trvyn leaned forward, studying the view screen intently. A cluster of planetary bodies emerged from the kaleidoscopic haze, rocky worlds and gas giants arranged around the golden fury of a brilliant sun. "Bring us out of warp near that fifth planet," the grizzled captain ordered. "It appears to be a terrestrial world that might have supported life at some point." Moments later, the Tempest's warp engines cycled down, depositing the ship in real space amid the distant orbits of the unknown system. Tari felt her stomachs clench in a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Could this truly be the site of the fabled Vykran signal? The bridge was bathed in the crimson light of the system's sun as Grav brought the ship into a stable orbit above the barren surface of the fifth planet. Its terrain was a blasted wasteland of towering mesas and deep canyons, devoid of any apparent atmosphere. "Sensors aren't detecting any technological sources on the surface," Korath reported, "but I am picking up faint energy signatures emanating from beneath the crust." "Buried ruins, maybe?" Tari couldn't help but wonder aloud. Trvyn's single eye narrowed pensively. "Possibly. But if this planet was once thriving, what happened to reduce it to its current state? Yeah. Long-range scans of the system aren't showing any indication of weapons impacts or orbital bombardment," Grav stated, his deep voice thrumming through his armoured chest plates. The massive Vrunx warrior's brow furrowed in a frown. "Perhaps some kind of natural cataclysm?" "Too many unanswered questions," muttered Trvyn. "But the energy signatures are our only lead to go on for now regarding the Vykran signal." The captain stabbed a claw towards the view screen. "I want an away team ready to deploy planetside immediately. We need to get to the source of those readings and see what, if anything, the Vykrans left behind." Tari felt her feathers bristle with nervous energy as Trvyn turned his piercing gaze on her. "Scout Velos, I'll need your survey expertise and scientific acumen leading the ground team. Grav, Korath, you're also heading dirtside to provide security and investigate any potential dangers. Assemble whatever gear and personnel you need, but keep it lean and tight." As the bridge crew scrambled to ready themselves, Tari allowed herself a steadying breath. This was what she had dreamed of, the potential for a true first contact and discovery that could shed light on the galaxy's greatest mysteries. She mentally recited the Scout Corps creed as she hurried from the bridge towards the armory. We were the first out into the void between the stars. Where our eyes went next, there soon followed ship and crew, scientist and soldier, colonists. For each new world we encountered, settled or studied, brought new truths to be cherished and opportunities to be seized. We will go, we will see, we will know. Soon Tari stood alongside Grav and Korath in the cramped hangar bay as the massive boarding ramp of the scout ship extended with a groan of hydraulics. An 8-person crew of surveyors and security personnel stood at the ready, armed and equipped for hazardous operations in the field. "All right, people," Tari shouted over the sound of the ramp grinding against the hangar deck plates. "Our mission is to locate and investigate the source of those energy signatures on the surface. We have no idea what we're going to encounter down there, so keep your wits about you and trust your training. I don't need to remind you of how incredible this opportunity is for us." With that, the away team double-timed down the ramp and out into the scorching, dusty daylight of the nameless world. Chapter 3. The Ruins of the Ancients. The away team descended through banks of swirling crimson dust towards the deep canyons that scarred the planet's tortured surface. Korath led the way, her pulse rifle at the ready as she consulted a handheld scanner. "Energy readings are strongest towards the Northern Canyon network," the lupine lieutenant reported over her comlink, "but I'm also detecting faint traces of radiation. Whatever's down there might be hazardous." Grav rumbled an acknowledgement as the hulking Vrunx gestured for the security personnel to reinforce their sealed environmental suits. Tari felt the familiar thrill of exploring an alien world course through her feathers as the ground team picked their way across the treacherous landscape. At last, the deep chasm of a towering carved out by eons of planetary erosion yawned before them, and there, nestled within its rocky precipices, lay the unmistakable remains of some long-lost civilization. Tari's breath caught in her throat at the sight of it. Crumbling spires and shattered edifices jutted from the canyon floor, their alien architecture a mind-bending blend of geometric angles and sweeping archways, though whatever materials they were constructed from had long deteriorated from exposure. The sheer scale of the ruins hinted at their maker's ambitions. Grav let out a low whistle, his external speakers crackling with awe. If this was the Vykran, their cities must have spanned entire continents. "Fan out," Tari commanded, her natural curiosity overtaking her surprise. "Start documenting and surveying the structural remains, while I try to triangulate the source of those energy readings." The away team fanned out amidst the jagged rubble, Korath leading a defensive perimeter around the scientists. Tari consulted her tricorder, adjusting its sensor bandwidth to isolate the anomalous power signatures from background interference. The device's tensor grid indicated the source was coming from deep beneath one of the larger spired complexes in the center of the ruins. "I've located the energy signal's origin," Tari announced into her comlink. "It seems to be emitting from below that large pyramid structure ahead. Everyone reconvene, and we'll begin excavating an entry point." As the away team regrouped, a soft tremor shuddered through the dust beneath their boots. Then another, more insistent vibration coursed up through the alien structures around them, shaking loose flakes of ancient mortar. "Take cover!" Korath barked, shoving Tari behind the leaning rampart of a collapsed wall. The rest of the crew scrambled for whatever meager shelter they could find as the tremors intensified to a bone-shaking crescendo. With a deafening crack, the top third of the towering pyramid complex sheared off in an explosion of dust and thunder. Tari stared in horror as the massive section toppled away, flinging debris across the ruins in all directions. When the fury of rock and dust finally settled, an eerie silence fell across the scene of devastation. But there, visible at last in the pyramid's newly exposed central shaft, was the unmistakable glow of pulsing energies, unlike anything Tari had ever witnessed. "By the four winds!" Korath swore as she pulled herself up from behind their improvised shelter. "What in Oblivion just happened?" Ignoring questions for now, Tari was already bounding forward, her scientific curiosity urging her towards the incredible discovery revealed before them. She scrambled over the shattered rubble as Grav roared at the rest of the crew to fan out and make sure there were no additional imminent threats. Within moments, Tari stood at the edge of the collapsed pyramid, staring in awe at the spectacle contained within. A towering chamber stretched hundreds of meters beneath the surface of the world, its walls suffused with the flickering radiance of strange panels and circuits that appeared to be etched directly into the rock itself. And at the center of it all, humming with the energies that had first drawn them here, hung an immense sphere comprised of gleaming machinery and concentric rings that spun in perpetual silent rotation around a brilliant core of light. "Scouts!" Tari whispered into her comlink, her voice hushed with reverence. "I think we've discovered what's left of a Vykran Dyson sphere." Chapter 4. Echoes of the First Ones. An uneasy hush fell over the members of the away team as they gathered at the edge of the massive chasm that housed the legendary Vykran sphere. Even the stalwart Grav seemed cowed by the spectacle of such an immense and ancient technological wonder laid bare before them. "We need to get a closer look," Tari murmured, unable to tear her eyes away from the pulsing energies that bathed the interior of the underground chamber. "Whatever this sphere is, it may be the source of the signal that led us here." Korath nodded, her usually gruff demeanor replaced by one of stunned amazement. "Agreed. But we'll proceed with extreme caution. Grav, have your security teams establish a perimeter while Tari's scientists work on finding us a way down into that chamber." Within minutes, the away team had fanned out into a coordinated operation. While the security officers ringed the rim of the newly uncovered pyramid, scanning for any potential threats, Tari and her survey crew began rigging anti-grav lines and rappelling gear to descend into the depths. As Tari herself prepared to be lowered over the precipice, something flickering in her peripheral vision caught her eye. She turned to see faint shapes and patterns rippling across the wall of the main chamber in waves of light. "Hold up the descent," she called out. "I'm picking up some sort of energy fluctuations on the interior surfaces." A tremor of anxiety ran through Tari's feathers as the light patterns intensified, rapidly interlacing into complex chains of code and symbolic language unlike anything she'd ever studied. They crawled across every surface now, building towards a crescendo of blinding luminance. Then, as quickly as the phenomena manifested, a deafening thunderclap of sound and force erupted from the center of the chamber. The shockwave slammed into the away team, sending them sprawling amid screams of shock and pain. When Tari's vision finally cleared, she found herself sprawled against the dust, her environmental suit breached and her sensitive feathers singed by cosmic force. Slowly, dreading what she might witness, she lifted her head towards the organ of the blast. There, hovering in the air above the still-spinning sphere, hung a shimmering figure of light and energy that sparked with the ephemeral radiance of a small sun. Its vaguely humanoid shape seemed to flow and bend with each passing second, morphing through baffling geometries and angles. "Greetings, children of the stars," a resonating voice like the horn calls of celestial choirs echoed all around them. "We are the Vykra, architects of the cosmos, shepherds of this infant universe. You have found the failsafe of our great engine, our final exodus into the realms beyond matter and time." The being's brilliance dimmed somewhat as its luminous form condensed into angles and vertices more coherent to visual perception. "When you believe you have plumbed the depths of our mysteries and legacies, know that you have merely a fraction of what we were and what may still yet come to be." With that cryptic pronouncement, the figure collapsed in on itself in a sudden burst of energy, disappearing in a flash that left spots dancing across Tari's vision. When she could finally see clearly again, all that remained was the stillness of the underground chamber and the Vykran sphere continuing its silent rotations as if nothing had transpired. "What in the seven hells was that?" Grav's stunned voice crackled over the comms as the rest of the team staggered back to their feet. Tari could only shake her head in a daze, suddenly feeling terribly small against the backdrop of such ineffable cosmic mysteries. Whatever they had discovered here would shake the very foundations of galactic civilization, but at its core burned the tantalizing promise of further wonders awaiting disclosure by those daring enough to plumb the fire-forged remnants left by the Vykra. They had been the first to rise among the blazing furnaces of nascent stars, and if the ancient ones could be believed, they would not be the last to ascend into that searing celestial destiny. Chapter 5. Revelations. In the days and weeks that followed the fateful discovery of the Vykran sphere, the Explorer Corps pulled every resource at its disposal to study and document the underground relic. A hastily constructed research outpost sprawled across the alien ruins as scientists and engineers worked around the celestial chronometer to unlock the sphere's mysteries. At the center of the intense effort stood Tari Velos, now seated as the chief xenoarchaeologist, attempting to decipher the dizzying layers of data and codes that bled from the sphere's inner workings. Though the encounter with the Vykran hologram had left more questions than answers, Tari was driven by the insatiable need to understand the full significance of what they had uncovered. Beside the weary Dornian, Lieutenant Korath pored over tactical readings, maintaining a vigilant watch for any further phenomena that could endanger the research teams. The appearance of the luminous Vykran intelligence had them all on edge, uncertain if they had unleashed something that was beyond their ability to comprehend or control. Tari uttered a sigh of frustration as she massaged her aching crest feathers. "I've been over these data patterns 100-fold, but every time I think I've identified a recurring matrix language or symbolic logic, it branches off into new streams of complexity. It's almost as if the sphere is designed to reshape itself in real time to defy any attempt at rigid codification, Korath mused, mandibles twitching. Before Tari could respond, the outer doors to the command center hissed open, admitting the hulking armored bulk of Chief Grav and a worried-looking Captain Trvyn. The Gorossian captain's eye was narrowed to a slit of concern. "We may have a situation developing," Trvyn growled. "Our latest telemetry scans are showing abnormal gravitational eddies and distortions forming across this entire sector of space." Tari's feathers stood on end as she examined the sensor readings flickering across the main hololith projection table. "Almost like the region is being affected by intense gravitational stresses." "Precisely," Grav rumbled, his armored gauntlets clanking against the projection surface to zoom in on a localized region of space-time flux. "And based on my calculations, the nexus point of these gravimetric disturbances appears to be our planet-side position." A leaden silence fell over the command center as the implications sank in. Somehow, the Vykran sphere was exerting profound, potentially catastrophic stresses on the very fabric of the space surrounding it. Tari swallowed hard against the growing sense of dread. After assimilating the data from her documentation efforts, a horrifying possibility had begun crystallizing in her mind, one that, if true, would rewrite all of their fundamental cosmological understandings. "Captain," she began slowly, her voice heavy, "what if the sphere is not simply some abandoned relic, but part of a grander active design left behind by the Vykra? What if this entire star system, this region of space itself, was an intricate mechanism they constructed for higher purposes? We can scarcely conceive." She paused to let the weight of her next words sink in. "And what if, by our very presence here, our intrusion on this place, we have somehow activated its true purpose?" A profound stillness gripped the command center as Tari's theory settled like a shroud over them all. If she was correct, they had done more than simply disturb the mysteries of an extinct alien civilization. They may have triggered a cosmic force with the power to unmake the universe itself. Trvyn was the first to finally find his voice, his words etched with grim resolution. "Then it falls to us to make sure we can shut this weapon down before everything we know is torn asunder. Because if those are the legacies the Vykra left for us, they should have buried them more deeply." As the command crew hurried to action stations, Tari felt an icy chill run through her at the dark implications that lay ahead. The alluring promise of revelations the Ancient Ones had hinted at was quickly contorting into a cosmic nightmare. She could only pray to the winds of creation that her own people did not meet the same cataclysmic downfall as their predecessors among the stars. Chapter 6. Oblivion's Bloom. Klaxon alarms blared across the sprawling research outpost as emergency containment fields flared to life around the excavated Vykran sphere. Within the reinforced command bunker, the feed from 1,000 sensors and monitoring systems painted a horrifying picture. Gravitometric influences are increasing geometrically across virtually every dimension of measurement, Korath's voice rang out, edged with strain as she struggled to process the overwhelming streams of data. "It's becoming a runaway exponential cascade." On the main hololith projection, a haunting spiral of distortions rapidly expanded outward from the sphere's nexus point in an ever-intensifying gyre of warped spacetime. Already, the nearest planet within the dead star system had been violently ripped from its orbit, careening into its sun in a blinding cosmic collision. At this rate of acceleration, it will be a mere matter of hours before these gravitational stresses consume the entirety of the system, Grav rumbled, his armored bulk silhouetted against the projections of a universe literally tearing itself apart. And from there, it will only continue growing, becoming an ever-expanding singularity that will eventually devour everything in its path. Tari felt her stomachs contort in knots of dread and failure. All her theories, her assertions about awakening the sphere's purpose had proved too terribly accurate. They had unwittingly triggered a doomsday device that made even the most destructive weapons of the galaxy pale in comparison. Trvyn turned from the projections with a grim look etched across his vulpine features. Then we have no choice. We need to overload the hyperspatial warp core, use the antimatter reaction to trigger a sustained wormhole leading directly into the heart of this spatial distortion. Tari's feathers stood on end at the captain's proposed course of action. "You can't be serious! Unleashing that amount of exotic energy at the singularity's focal point risks tearing open a rift that could swallow the entire sector." Trvyn levelled his single eye impassively at Tari, his voice utterly resolute. "It's the only chance we have at destabilizing the sphere's matrix from the inside out and collapsing the distortion before it can breach past the system's event horizons," he said, each word like a death knell. "If we don't take this risk now, then Oblivion will be the only path remaining." Around the command center, the bridge crew and science teams had fallen into a funereal silence, all too aware of what Trvyn's gambit might entail. But for the first time since their discovery, a flicker of hope began burning in Tari's eyes. "Wait," she murmured, talons flying furiously over a holopad as she downloaded the feverish calculations streaming across her screen. I think I might be able to see a way to modulate the graviton polarities of the wormhole aperture to create a subspace implosion corridor." Korath, Grav and the rest of the crew looked on in stunned confusion as diagrams and fractal schematics blossomed to life across the projection table. "Don't you see?" Tari insisted urgently, hope and determination flaring in her words. "If we focus the wormhole's exotic energies along a precise harmonic resonance, we could essentially turn the gravity sphere's power in on itself, creating a subspace singularity that would tear the construct apart from the inside." Trvyn studied the complex webs of physics, playing out before them all, his keen intellect racing to comprehend Tari's conjectures. After a long, torturous moment, a grim smile spread across his muzzle. "Cochrane's cosmic loom," he growled in realization. "You've extrapolated one of the most theoretical hyperspatial theorems into a solution for tearing through that abomination with its own power." Tari nodded resolutely, feeling a profound sense of clarity at last settle over her. "It's the only way to cut the head off this encroaching singularity before it consumes us all." At that, Trvyn turned to face his crew one last time, the full weight of the decision and its coming repercussions etched into his burnished features. "You heard Scout Velos," he said, his words ringing out across the command center with a steely determination. "It's the only chance left to excise the cosmic cancer we've awoken. Korath, begin preparations to overload and modulate our hyperspatial warp cores to Tari's specifications. All other research personnel are to be evacuated from the outpost and begin retreating to a safe distance." With a brusque nod, the lieutenant immediately began relaying orders as the rest of the crew leapt into frantic action. For a fleeting moment, the enormity of what they were about to attempt seemed to sap the air from the room. But standing amongst these intrepid explorers, united for one last push into the unknown, Tari felt an unshakable conviction course through her. No matter what oblivion might await them, they would make their final defiance blaze across the cosmos like a newborn star birthing forth from the ashes of creation's past. This was the path they had chosen, from the very first time their ancestors had gazed up at the night skies and conceived of voyaging beyond their cradle worlds. It was the noble calling that had led them to awaken the very fires that now threatened to consume them utterly. But if they could thread the needle, if Tari's calculations held true, it would also be the path that showed them the way to not only save their universe, but to transcend it entirely. As Tari joined the crew in carrying out Captain Trvyn's orders, the last embers of doubt were extinguished in her blazing determination. She was a scout, an explorer who would voyage beyond the night eternal if need be, to find a new dawn for them all. And as the light of a new wormhole began blossoming around the central singularity, the survivors would face their ultimate trial, to either forge their escape through Oblivion's raging maw, or embrace its wondrous secrets and become something more.